Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we'll take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we'll take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Asime. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. As Nigeria steps into 2026, we do so with hope, yet carrying the grief of recent tragedies. Reminders that while the calendar has changed, some national wounds remain painfully open. In the closing days of 2025, two separate road tragedies shook the country, claiming 9 lives, losses that force us to ask what we carry forward into this new year and what must finally be left behind. On the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, a vehicle conveying global boxing champion Anthony Joshua was involved in a serious crash. Joshua survived. 2 people did not, Sina Gami and Latif Lads Ayodele. Close friends are core members of Jonathan's team, men who shared his discipline, pressures, sacrifices, and dreams. Their lives were lost instantly. Also simultaneously in Gombe State, an interstate journey ended in devastation when a vehicle carrying media professionals crashed, killing 7 journalists and media workers, people whose job was to document the nation's story, but who never made it home. They were Sarah Umar, Manu Kwame, Issa Lawan, Musa Tabra, Aminu Adamu, and Judith Kutos. One crash involved a global sports figure and dominated headlines worldwide. The other wiped out 7 journalists and faded far more quickly from national conversation. At the start of 2026, these incidents leave critical questions hanging about what happened, what failed, and what must change. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because in a brief moment, we shall begin to focus on the day's subject matter with my distinguished guests. Peter Aka, Maymunah, Yusuf and Olusegun Ogungbemide. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. My guests on this episode of the show are in no particular order. Peter Aka, a social critic and human rights advocate. Dr. Maymunah Yusuf-Kadiri, who is popularly known as a celebrity shrink, a psychiatrist, mental health advocate, and life coach. And last but certainly not the least, Olusegun Ogungbemide, Assistant Marshal Corps Public Education Officer, Federal Roads Safety Commission Headquarters, Abuja. I want to say I'm highly delighted to have all 3 of you here today, and I hope that we'll be able to cover this in a very large perspective. So let me start with you, Mr. Segun. You know, with investigations now advanced, what have the authorities established about what really happened in both incidents, and what evidence supports this conclusion?
Thank you very much. And let me say good morning to Nigeria.
Morning.
It's been a very pathetic moment for this nation and a very disturbing one at the same time. We know we've been experiencing crashes, which we have been trying to manage in the last 38 years. But this one actually hit Nigeria below the belt. And it's expected because of the status of the people involved. And what happened wouldn't have been outrightly something unexpected, because if you look at the trend of road traffic crashes in Nigeria, we know that there were always interventions because of the experience we had in the past. And over the years, we've been able to reduce the trend from about 42,000 annually to less than 6,000, even compared to global data, because the global data says we have 1.29 million fatality recorded annually. And we have about 15 million injuries recorded globally. But in Nigeria, from what we had before 1988 to date, we are talking of less than 6,000 now. Fatality deaths is quite touching. So we have not really relented. What happened that day? Though
on both occasions.
Yes, on both occasions, because it's almost the same time, the same day. You know, I don't really want to dwell much because the case has been taken to court now, so that we don't have any way of tampering with whatever must have been happening in the court space. But let me just be general. Emotions were raised, passions and hunger. But what we cited, like I talked about observatory investigation, by being an expert of more than 30 years, when you get to a scene, you should be able to, have a little analysis of what must have gone wrong. The hunger that was extended to the truck could have been called a misplacement, because...
Was it anger or speed?
No. When I talk of hunger, that's what's generated in the public space.
Oh, okay.
You understand the emotions, the hunger was somehow misplaced because the truck, as an entity, was actually innocent because it's outrightly off the 3 lanes.
Okay.
The road space was actually innocent because when you look at the 3 lanes, there were no potholes on that side of the crash.
Side, yeah.
And the system, that's the establishment now, were actually innocent because as against the 10-15 minutes response time of getting to a crash scene, our men were there 3 minutes under 5 minutes by virtue of pleasant coincidence. Because ideally when we get to a crash scene 5-15 minutes, we are right on time. But this one was 3 minutes because coincidentally they were the other side of the flank. So they witnessed what happened and just made a U-turn to get to that spot.
So your people were on the
Yes,
side
yes. That's why but the video you just showed, notice that Joshua was still in the vehicle and our men were already there. Under 3 minutes they were there, which I would call a kind of palliative to the trauma that he must have been sustaining. So all what played out, when you look at the factors that do cause road traffic crashes, is strictly or purely human error.
Okay, it's good. I would like to delve into that more as the morning wears on. But let me ask you, Maymunah, how does traumatic shock, because they say Joshua escaped with minor injuries, but how does traumatic shock manifest physically on a man like Joshua or anybody who escapes with minor injuries? How does it now manifest after the whole incident?
Thank you very much, and of course, Happy New Year to everyone. For someone like Joshua, he's not a Nigerian citizen anymore. He's a global citizen. And just before that crash, he had just won a global, match, which was, widely celebrated. So him coming to the country, which is not the first, second, or third, he has been coming, and he celebrates Nigeria with his flag anywhere he goes. So when an accident like that occurs, surviving the clash is one aspect. Surviving the trauma takes a lot of understanding, patience, and of course, support. He has been discharged now from the hospital. His healing begins now. That is where everything comes in. His healing begins now because now he's alive, minor injuries taken care of, but the emotional, the psychological, the mental is where we really need to dive in. And this is where he needs to understand what can happen immediately, what can happen later, in the short term, and of course the long term. The long term, what we are preventing is post-traumatic stress disorder. Immediately now is looking at his sleep disturbances, his mood changes, appetite, people around it. So his support system is very, very, very important. So in the realm of everything that has happened now, it's for us as awesome citizens, family members, loved ones, to give him that space to say whatever he wants to say, to ask all the difficult questions, to grieve because he's bereaved. Because the members that died are not just people that are just people. They are people, core members of his team. So ability for him to give him that trauma-informed psychosocial support for him to be able to go through this phase without giving him timelines. So physically, what can manifest is all those chest tightness, sleep disturbances, whether digestive issues like as if it's some days diarrhea, some days constipation and all that, and of course emotionally issues with anxiety, panic attacks. So, but it needs to know what are the immediate, short and long term. On that way, it can be able to process that effectively. But if it doesn't know when certain things are happening to him, he may be thinking that, why is this happening to me? Why is it? Because it can lead to delayed trauma, it can lead to delayed grief, which is bad, and it can lead to more dangerous emotional and psychological issues.
Okay, let me get to you, Peter. Why do tragedies involving famous figures get prolonged attention while equally devastating events like the Gombe journalist crash fade quickly? Is that right?
There is a positive and there is a negative side to it, because we almost live in a classist society, and sometimes, as bad as incident like this happen, it calls to bear our national, alignment and preparedness to handle issues like this. Let us say, if it were not that Anthony Joshua, a personality like that, is involved, there have been crashes. Not even only the accident in Gombe. Along Songo Ijoko, there have been many others on that road. Yes. But then again, I feel that the incident of, the last few days involving Anthony Joshua, to me, was a colossal failure. It was not just a national, it was an international shame on Nigeria, and it's an indictment of government at all levels, both local, state, and federal. Because as it is today, we have had, injunctions that it was dangerous or reckless driving. In fact, the driver has been charged to court. Yeah. That is why it is in court now. The question will then be, and many thanks to the road safety officials, who do their job and who try to manage to do their job with the kind of resources and manpower that they have. But let us assume that it was dangerous and reckless driving. At what point was it established? And then who is it, or whose decision or duty is it to enforce road traffic, precautions or safety measures? If it had not ended in a crash, so it would have been okay to dangerously drive from point A to wherever he was going and dangerously drive back? Or is it when it happened as an accident, we now determine that it's dangerous driving? Whose duty is it? What do we know is the speed limit of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway? Because Lagos-Ibadan Expressway it took almost 20 years to build that section of the road, and somehow we ended up with a road that has almost little or no road furnitures. And mind you, Nigeria is a signatory to the Vienna Convention on Road Signs and Signals that at about 2017, which the road safety signed into, prepared staff for. But somehow we are in a situation where, okay, let us assume that it was the recklessness of the driver. So since the recklessness of the driver has killed two, let the responsibility of the government kill the survivors. What excuses the lack of medical teams on ground to rescue whomever was there? Did you see how Anthony Joshua was taken out of that vehicle? What was taken? Was it dangerous driving that also prevented the stretcher to be on site? Was it dangerous driving that prevented an ambulance to be on site when the government is sharing renewed hope buses across the state for re-election of the president? So across board, it is a failure of leadership. And then because road safety officers, they are also victims. Let us not forget that in 2017, a road safety officer, Mr. Biodun Ajomale, died somewhere around Lagos here trying to prevent or address road traffic issues. So as much as there was response, as much as it was whatever, it is an indictment of failures of institution and government at all levels.
It's good that you brought that up, because that is going to lead me to the next question. Abroad, when you travel on the highway, you have the max to show you that you can't pass 60 whatever per minute or 40 miles per minute. Why don't we have that on the highway? And what other things, how are speed limits currently being measured on the highway? If you don't use, or do you use cameras like other countries do?
Thank you very much. Like my brother Riley said, there were, rules, the global rules that were acceded to by Nigeria via Federal Road Safety Corps. And these rules have been guiding us over the years.
What are the rules?
Yes, like one of the ones he mentioned was this idea of carriage of dangerous items. Signages that are required when you are moving dangerous items from one hand to the other, like either wet cargo or dry cargo. What are the kind of, markings and signage that the vehicle are supposed to carry? That one is, we will have about 6 of them, which I really don't know what to dwell in. Let us just identify the one that is burning us hard now. When Lagos-Ibadan Express was completed, we had reason to intervene. FRSC does not construct roads. FRSC does not fill potholes.
Yeah.
But the mandate given to us is when we have reason to view the road, we have what we call road survey, and we pass the information to the appropriate quarters, which ideally is supposed to be the Ministry of Works for them to do the needful. You recall, like you rightly said, the reconstruction of Lagos-Ibadan really took some years. And we were on it. I was Sector Commander Lagos, and I knew what we passed through, trying to manage the traffic, even deep into the night. You were all passing through the same road. And when it got concluded, you now realize that even the road markings you noticed from Kara down to some extent now used to be open. There were no road markings. And part of the effort we did was to intervene and inform the appropriate quarters that road markings are not there. So as regards the issue of intervention that he mentioned, that's ambulances.
Yes.
And
Well, we can get into. Let's just
Yes.
go for a break. I have to make some breaking news, and then we'll come back to the conversation. Now, President Donald Trump announced early Saturday that Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro has been captured and flown out of the country following a U.S. military operation. In a social media post, Trump tweeted that the U.S. forces conducted a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, adding that Maduro's wife was also seized. The announcement came after residents of Caracas reported at least 7 explosions and low-flying aircraft around 2 a.m. local time. Smoke was seen rising from the area of La Carlota Airport, a military base in the capital. Venezuela's government had earlier accused the United States of attacking civilian and military installations and called on supporters to take to the streets, declaring a state of external disturbance. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration had issued a ban on U.S. commercial flights in Venezuelan airspace prior to the explosion, citing ongoing military activity. The U.S. Embassy issued a shelter-in-space warning for American citizens in Venezuela. There has been no immediate statement from the Venezuelan government following Trump's announcement. So we're going on a break right now. We'll see you right back. Get your cup of tea and join me back on Perspectives. See you soon. Welcome back. Welcome right back to Perspectives. Let's dive right in. Okay, before the break, we were talking about your rapid response.
Yes,
and there was a pertinent question a lot of viewers were asking, courtesy of social media, that's why were there no ambulances? How come, what's his name, Anthony Joshua was physically carried out and then now put into a car? That if it had been professionally handled, it is a professional that should be able to carry him out and make sure, nothing is disrupted in the process and not put him on the car but put him on the stretcher. So, please, the pertinent questions about lack of ambulance being there, arriving on time, and also lack of rapid response. It wasn't fast enough.
Thank you very much. I think our judgment was actually based on the information we picked on social media, which I wouldn't want to fault because we all agree that it has its own positive and negative implication. But the scenario that played out that day, the narrative on the social media really
No
did
ambulance,
not
no stretcher.
capture correctly. The first thing we would have celebrated was the team got there at the peak of time, just 3 minutes.
But did they come with an ambulance?
Excuse me, they don't move with ambulance. The patrol team is a mobile team that move around for enforcement, for apprehension. And they were at the other side of the crash. And immediately it happened, they moved. And while they were going to the scene, what they normally do is to call the office for the ambulance. We have more than 400 patrol vehicles in Nigeria today, so it's not possible for each patrol vehicle to move with ambulance. Ambulance are stationed, deployed strategically, and that's what we do. We have ambulance deployed at Ojota. You can go and confirm. We have one at Kara. We have one at Mowe. We have at Shagamu. We have at Ugere. We have at Ogumaki. The last one is at Oluyole, while the base is at Iwo Road. Roundabout. Those are in fact, when you talk of the most fortified corridor in Nigeria today is Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. What played out was, because if they had gone there, maybe the 10 minutes, 15 minutes rescue time, maybe we will have talked about the ambulance coming along with them. But they were there under 3 minutes. And because of the status of the person involved, even by the time they made the detour, about 30 vehicles had already occupied the road, blocking the entrance. They could not even move with their own patrol car. They had to, come down and run down to the spots. People were already around clustering the place. We are talking of an international hero, an international brand. And the moment they started identifying the fact that it is Anthony Joshua, more people were coming. His security details came. You notice that while he was still in the vehicle, the road safety officials were around him. When the security operatives came, it was not safety that was the priority at that moment. It was his security.
Okay.
That was what played out. They cordoned off the place.
Overzealous onlookers.
They cordoned off the place because we're talking of Anthony Joshua. Anything could come up. You started hearing elogizing, logo, those are the statement of miscreants, if I may put it that way.
Yeah.
And anything could happen at that moment. And naturally, even if the ambulance had got into that spot, you still have needed to bring Anthony Joshua out of the vehicle. The pains will still have been there. Even internationally, when you know that somebody is stable enough, because what is a priority at that moment is to move the victim from the move him to safety first, yes. Or you move the crash away from him. But this moment, what is more priority is to move him to safety. And the available safety before the arrival of the ambulance was the available vehicle. Not stretcher, was the available. We wouldn't have kept him on the floor on stretcher. You understand?
That's true.
He's on his feet. He gave thumb up. You move him from danger and kept him inside that vehicle. But the security operative says we need to switch him off this line because more people were coming. We're talking of an international brand because the ambulance will have come and still move him away from there. But because security take the priority at that moment, and that was what played out. So I just mentioned the number of ambulances along that corridor. Okay. And many Nigerians will also agree with me that when it comes to prompt response to road traffic crashes, with our ambulances, they are all over the places. And it's not just bringing ambulance to say maybe we are trying to showcase anything. It's for a purpose. Okay. And when that purpose has been taken care of, because the birds that were already on ground, they were flung out from the vehicle and they were dead already. Okay. That was just what played out.
You spoke about how the crowd surrounding the scene of the accident also can be a bit of a hindrance.
Exactly.
Now, I want to ask you, Peter, there's good and bad. Yes. Because without the social media presence, we will not be able to be aware of just how bad the situation really is. Yes. So what is your take when it comes to this social media coverage of events like this? What are the good and bad points? Because most of the things that we hear come from social media as opposed to the professionals doing it and their opinions. So what role does social media play in discovering things like this, the good and the bad and the ugly?
It depends on the usage and it depends on how, systems and institutions run. In the case of Anthony Joshua, with all respect to the Federal FRSC, if there is an accident that is fatal enough to claim the life of two persons instantly, it does not matter the security detail attached to him. If there is respect and regard for an institution that is a first responder, the FRSC will coordinate with security teams and know that first must be the safety, medical safety. A survivor of a crash that killed two people was made to stand on his feet. It is wrong, medically wrong. There could have been internal bleeding. In fact, it complicates and aggravates minor injuries. That medical procedure, he was made to sit upright in front of a van. That was how he was put there. If not for social media, we would not have seen it. So let us imagine a scenario where the road safety came with security officials. They are able to prevail on the crowd, cordon off the area, handle it in a more professional manner.
It was difficult to even get through the crowd.
There must be a way. We cannot allow it to be at the whims and caprices of individuals or citizens. They are an institution. They have the power. The people who are there are only there because they believe that they should help because the institutions may not be able to hold. So if we have regard and we know that our institutions are able to professionally do what they need to do, citizens will not need to step in. The security of Anthony Joshua cannot be more interested in security than his safety. What if he had passed with the others? So what were we saying? Security about what? A person who both friends had died instantly. We're talking about his security or his safety and medical wellness. So I think that it does not matter. And look, road safety and all safety procedures includes both governance and people. When citizens trust their institutions, a lot of societal, what we make up as our own motives or experiences is based on what we have suffered from government. When you see that across board there is neglect, so people begin to make assumptions, and that is what brings about this trust deficit. Where citizens, how many of our presidents or leaders take treatment in Nigeria? President Buhari used to treat ear infections in London. The current president has his doctors in Europe. So when it comes to, when people do not see an ambulance, immediately they will begin to draw inferences. Our medical systems are not working because government is not paying attention to it. That is, President Tinubu, as governor of Lagos State, signed the Lagos State pension that includes overseas medical treatment for a specified number of family members. A government that is not only protecting their right to seek treatment overseas, is even making legislation to back it up with taxpayer money. So what do you expect people on social media to say? When you have 70% of your roads in poor condition, yet the government is pumping trillion into one coastal highway. In Nigeria, we give certificate of roadworthiness to vehicles. Who gives certificate of vehicle worthiness to roads? Did you see the videos from across Lokoja to Abuja? Have you seen the Benin bypass? Have you seen the Warri Saple road? So across board, when there is this kind of recklessness and irresponsibility from leaders, you cannot blame citizens. There is trust deficit. Anything that will bring about safety must be cooperation between both government, the institution, and the people. After all, road safety officers are Nigerians. They are not aliens. Anybody who is serving us are Nigerians. So when you put structures that are efficient, you see that things are working, then you also do the citizen sensitization. We can now even become, the social media can become a tool for good. We can still use it to sensitize Nigerians to know that when there is something like this, how can citizens collaborate with even the officials and the first responders? But when there is trust deficit, then it is uhuru for everybody.
Okay. And let me ask you. Okay.
Because
you want
in
to
this case, right, first respondent deficit was a big minus.
Yes.
And that sent a lot of wrong information globally, because Anthony Joshua is a global citizen, like I said earlier on. First responder, very, very key. In fact, there's what we call the theory of the psychological first aid. If FRSC members are trained on psychological first aid, when they get to that place, they use the 3 L's. They look, make sure that everywhere is clear, just the way we do CPR, to just, ask the person, call the person's name, tap, and then before you start doing the chest compression, you look and clear the area, because they're always dressed in their whatever official way. And then you listen to if he's talking, if he's all right and other, then of course pay attention, take the details, then you link up to the hospital that will take care of it. What happened there? He could have a spinal cord injury. He could have just died from a minor injury, because carrying him at that point like that, immediately. So for me, that was really wrong. A stretcher, a first respondent before, if they had come with all the security details, everybody will clear, because that's what they will respect. So the truth is that wasn't properly taken care of.
I also the part where the body part of a car
was covered. So it's not something that we should look into. It was wrong, it was very porous, and it sent wrong message globally to the fact that the first responder, emergency response, we don't have it, we lack it. And with what Peter said, people already don't trust the system, because even when ambulance is moving on the way, people say it's a lie. They're not carrying anything. It's empty. It's just blowing siren. So those kind of things, they have already lost trust in the system. So, but again, I would really encourage that we have members that are manning our road, starting with the FRSC, to be trained on psychological first aid. It really gives a whole lot. And then, of course, all that things that anybody can be aware of, because there are do's and don'ts in first respondent. No, the way the way it was managed was completely wrong.
Okay, let me,
I don't know. No,
now that you mentioned,
Mr.
Shego, I'm sure you want to respond to that. So before you respond,
I don't think you want to respond to it. No, it doesn't want to respond.
Let's go ahead.
Let's go ahead. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's go ahead.
So you're the representative here now. So of course, unfortunately, everything falls on you. Now, I want you to respond to what they both said. And also, I want to ask you, are there any purpose-built medical centers along major highways? And how well equipped are they to handle severe road trauma?
Yes,
so both questions in once. Answer them and then answer mine.
We have about 36 roadside clinics because I think over the years, we have really come to understand the importance of post-crash care, which happened to be the number 5 pillar of United Nations Decade of Action. That's all this while we have not been bothered when crash will call. That's why I'm just, if they know how far we have gone, the training we have given the men, it's unfortunate that it happened or it turned out, maybe the circumstantial issue sold us to this place we find ourselves. Because maybe we'll have taken our time to say, okay, let's wait until the ambulance arrives, let's take care, because that's where we actually started.
But if your medical centers are well positioned,
when I say
should arrive within 5 minutes.
No, if you look at Shagamu now, the one at Shagamu to that spot, by virtue of the road and all the blockages now, maybe under 5-7 minutes, it will have been there. I think, like I rightly said, which you all try to put up now, that the priority, the health and what have you, should have been the priority, not the security of the guy. I'm not against that. But when you are in the midst of
the reality,
the tension.
Well, that's why you're trained for it.
No, that's it now. You know, when FRSC is in charge, is fully in charge, we cannot do much about the crowd because the boys are not harmed. You understand? When you're overwhelmed by the crowd, you always need the support of other agencies to assist you. And remember that the people that are coming to that scene is a 5-man patrol team. They don't envisage, because the essence of roving is to prevent crashes from happening. So when it happens, you get to the scene, you cordon off the area. You make sure that there is no additional crash. Because you can imagine while Anthony Joshua is there, another truck now running. That was the first initial thing they were doing, cordoning off the area, preventing additional crash from happening while we're expecting the call-off of the ambulance to that spot. That's what really happened there. We have a process. And the procedure is that when a crash occurs, we have 2 ways. It's either they call the ambulance through the 122, FRSC toll free.
Who calls the ambulance?
That's the role that we are the expected members of the...
Okay, members.
Information is very key. No matter how intelligent an establishment is, if there's no information, something could be happening next door here, and we're not aware. But when somebody calls in and says there's problem outside, we all go out. That was what all those that clustered around were expected to do. Call 122. That the ambulance now comes.
122 is a number that
it should be.
Common knowledge.
122 is a common. When it comes, since I came on board,
but is it
please, I think there's one time if you call. I remember I was in Abuja when we were distributing handbills, and one was given to a very dark man. One time, and you know his nature, he just say, let's see whether
should I call 122?
Okay, let me try it.
Yeah, it's true.
Is that Android?
It's Android.
Call 122. He just called the line, and the next thing, he said, Nigeria is working. This thing, they responded. That is if they had called that line, they would have signaled, then the people come. And the essence of the patrol team is to get you to the point.
Does not exist. Please check the number and try again. Thank you.
You can still try it. He said it does not exist.
Yeah, but if it was an emergency case.
That one is not. That one is beyond FRSC. The network issue is beyond FRSC. You are talking as if your own phone too wouldn't have given you such. We are used to this. They got there. When they get there, they call the nearest command. And the nearest, as the ambulance is moving, it will call the nearest patrol team. The essence of the patrol team is to cordon off and clear the area. and they get there and do the necessary clearance.
Okay.
That was, but because of the way, I think it's about the status of the person that really created all this scenario.
No, it doesn't necessarily
because I wouldn't know, because the standard
Yes.
we have is the process and procedure.
Yes.
When you get there, you have the stretchers, you have the
Yes,
ambulance,
exactly.
you have all,
Exactly.
you understand. So, because we never even knew that they were moving with security details. They just made a detour and they met the men there. And that was, and like I said, before, that thing you just mentioned, it's not that they just started dragging him out.
Yeah,
He sat. You were there. The referee men were beside
Wouldn't it
him.
have been safer to leave him sitting down there until you can get to the stretcher?
He gave the position of that vehicle was already like it's not you can see the video all over. Like we said, it's always subject to review, and that's the essence of life.
Okay, looking at what happened then, what do you think you might have done better?
Yeah, looking back, maybe one would have insisted that irrespective of the security fear of maybe the details that followed him, will have insisted that no, why not let's cooperate and allow the ambulance to arrive before we start the necessary evacuation, which to them too, getting him to the point early enough will also still have been an issue. But making a standard to play out will have allowed our process to run through.
Okay, I want to ask you about guilt. When people get involved in tragic situations like this, what kind of guilt do survivors go through?
So survivor's guilt is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of empathy. It happens, emotional distress that happens, after experiencing a traumatic, event like this, like losing lives. He lost not just 1-2 members of his core team. So that survivor's guilt is going to happen. And it is happening as he's been managed for his physical wellness and now being discharged to go home. That is where it develops. And then those questions will come. Why them? Not me. Do I even deserve to move on? Any other activity is doing it with regards to now I'm laughing. It's like I'm belittling their death. Or if I have to move on, that means I do not regard them. Or if I have to, do anything, he's constantly telling himself that he shouldn't move on because of the death of his friends. So the truth is that survivor's guilt is real. It's not about being alive. That's the thing about survivor's guilt. It's about how to live again without apologizing for what has happened.
Yes. Yeah. Also, even how effective is the fact that his own is being done under public scrutiny?
And this is where the problem comes in, because now it shouldn't be given timeline to heal. Healing is not linear. It shouldn't be given there shouldn't be any pressure with regards to this is how it should be. You have to address press conference. You have to speak. It completely now. His healing must be private. It must be guarded. His family members must also be taught on how he can heal and how he can be supported. His loved ones have to be taught because it's not a one-size-fits-all. We don't know what he has experienced before, the type of traumas he has had in his lifetime, whether childhood, whether any incident of maybe a crash like this. Like I said, hypervigilance, flashback, not sleeping well, all those things that lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. It needs to, so the public, what we can do is to let him know that, him getting angry is not because he's a bad person. Healing is not linear. He should just know that he can move on, he can move forward, but it doesn't really mean that it's moving on. The stages of grief is not that it must follow through these steps of denial, shock, anger, bargaining. Some of them even lose their spiritual awareness because of their telling God, God, why did you take my friends? Why not somebody else? And all that bargaining stage. Then before they go into anger, depression, and then acceptance. Yes. Finally. So we as people can only pray for him, not pressure him to heal, not pressure him, and then ask him question, when is he coming back to come and that is not the question for that right now. It's only survivor and healing, not because any decision is taken now may be brash, may be erratic, may be insensitive. If he's going to play again, let it be his own decision to come back and say, I want to play again. If he's going to retire now, it is completely okay, and he owes nobody nobody apology, whether it's coming back or it doesn't come back. So that pressure, we need to understand that he doesn't need that pressure. His healing is private and healing is non-linear.
Okay, let me get back to you, Peter. First of all, like you were saying about him, people even discussing whether or not he will fight again. I just think that is absolutely insensitive. I want to know your take on that. And also, how should social media activism and public pressure be channeled to compel sustained institutional accountability rather than short-lived outreach?
Thank you very much.
How do we press this button and make sure that it stays on, stays pressed?
And to just lend a helping hand to the FRC, I think it is 112. Not 122.
Yes, it's
FRC is emergency
it's
number
122. That's
so
the
if you
one in Lagos State.
The one you called is national 112.
Okay, national.
So it can still connect.
Yeah.
Okay, it both can work.
Yes.
But I want to also ask, isn't there a way that you can have arrangements with mobile networks?
That is toll free, like 911 doesn't go to,
Because under duress, you call 122. The last thing you want to hear is
it's not
You know, when it comes to issue of network, it's beyond even all of us that are seated there. Even if you are connected to any, they are the ones that we have been operating with.
No, but this is a special helpline.
It's still the same emergency line.
That's what I'm saying. Can't it be treated differently rather than the normal
lines
route?
That's what we have. That's why it's
special preference.
The fact that it's toll free is an indication that it's a special preference.
Yeah.
But it's not very encouraging for you to call it and
it's not going through, especially in cases of emergency.
Yes, because that's why it's an emergency.
Honestly,
anyway,
from all indication, my thoughts and prayers are with all of us as Nigerians. We are all victims of a very dysfunctional and failed system. And until we fix government and institutions to work, we will continue to trade blames, we'll continue to go around in circles. What we are discussing here, the fundamental issues are not even discussed. I asked a question, what is the speed limit for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway?
Yes.
How is it enforced? Are there cameras? If the incident had not ended in a crash, would the driver have been penalized? It is true that people could have been patrolling, but is it possible that officers can see someone because they are influential and they are allowed to drive dangerously? Compromise on any safety standard is almost mass murder. That is why we must pay attention to it. And citizens will continue to be skeptical about government decisions because there is complete trust deficit. Let us ask ourselves, if there had been an ambulance, somebody said from the UK citizens, say, why was there not even an air ambulance and helicopter to lift? I said, you are not even grateful that they didn't bring Keke or Danfo to take him. At least there were people on ground. What hospital was Anthony Joshua taken to? Was it a government hospital? Did they take him to Lutz or General Hospital Bagada or the teaching hospital in Shagam? It, of course, a private medical center. What happened to the government or public institutions? Resident doctors are planning to go on strike again. That is the Nigerian system that we use or we operate on, where citizens do not believe that government and institutions are there to protect them. Anthony Joshua can decide to retire, he has made a fortune for himself. He's a big person. Nigerians die every day from road accidents. If it were not Anthony Joshua, well, President Bola Tinubu has run to Twitter and then begin to call a Nigerian, a British boxer. There's 7 people who died in Gombe. Did they mention them? They have names. The press at the 4th estate of the realm. They were coming back from a colleague's party. They perished. They are gone. Unknown soldier. The ones who will happen in Songo Ijoko Road. The ones who will still happen on that same, is it Benin Auchi or Lagos Ibadan Expressway or a Benin Expressway. Nigerians continue to perish. If the fundamentals of governance are not working, the road furnitures, the road signages, let people know that there are penalties for certain things.
Exactly.
It is possible that that crash may not even have killed the occupants, but killed innocent bystanders on the road. If not, maybe for the truck that was parked there. Imagine it somersaulting into maybe a bear parlor or somebody. So safety procedures must be enforced, but we will take our eyes off that and then we begin to treat, it's Anthony Joshua. Nigerians are dying every day, but we have a minister for works who is a professor in training, and what we are doing is coastal highway. So it is not about citizens advocacy for me, and I may be sounding like a broken record. There is no way anything will work in Nigeria until government works. Even police officers, as much as you accuse them, road safety, military officers, they are also victims. Today in Nigeria, we are in 21st century Nigeria. We are talking about handling road traffic issues with giving firearms to FRIC officers. At the end of it, everybody in Nigeria will need to give nurses gun, teachers go hold gun, youth will hold gun, market women gun, everybody, church and pastors even need gun more now, especially with the incidents in Kwara. Because that is where Nigeria is insecurity. The people need to protect their life. How much is their salary? What is the training for the officers? If you do not engage in crime and criminality as law enforcement officials, how well can you live? Whether you are sector commander, unit commander, corps marshal, IG of police, DPO, that is the recklessness across board that must be fixed. Imagine if that scenario that happened with Anthony Joshua, there was a kind of response. Imagine the elevation it will create of the Nigerian image on the global stage.
Yeah.
But everybody was looking and was like,
what is
somebody, Anthony Joshua, see how he was groaning out of that car. Look at it.
And his stomach was extended.
It was extended.
Yeah.
And then
So
we're
you
talking
cannot
about,
breathe in for
trying
that,
to say that
yeah.
security. If Nigerians do not come together, for me, social advocacy and activism is about fixing government. If public office holders are not held accountable, if there is no deterrence or punishment for doing badly, people will continue to misbehave.
Okay,
Politicians will do it without any consequence.
Let me ask Mr. Segun, because this is obviously, I asked you earlier on about this road, cameras on the road and how you can manage. So in moving forward to reduce, what else do you think that FRC needs to do to reduce fatalities on the roads? And then also, when a truck is parked, albeit parked off the road, shouldn't there be signs
Timeline
or signals to show
take it
the
out.
oncoming driver that, this is being parked here? And then, how long can they park for? Shouldn't there be a legal timing that once the truck is parked there because it has broken down, within an hour or two, is removed? So these are pertinent questions.
These are issues we have tackled over the years that I would say to a large extent. I travel all the way from Ibadan to this place today. There's no single truck on the road, no amounting to obstruction, and that's the way we have been managing throughout the Federation. And that's why the emphasis on that particular one is not really scaling through, because it's not an obstruction on that road. It's a vehicle park, not even on the service lane.
Should they be allowed to even park?
No, you see, when does parking on the shoulder become an offense in Nigeria?
Well,
because we need to get it right. Because tomorrow now your own vehicle parks there, I pick it up, and you see it as an offense.
But are they allowed to park there indefinitely?
It's not indefinitely. How many do you know? Do you have the history? Because the men on that corridor, we have two trucks on that corridor, and the job they do is to move. That's why you hardly see any obstruction on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Okay. The job they do is to remove obstruction from the road. I told you what played out. Well, thank God for what you rightly said. The social media too assisted either negatively or positively, which we are all trying to solve on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
How do we control
the man that drove that vehicle, if actually he passed through driving school, must have been tutored that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is 100 kilometers per hour. Because that is what he is.
Okay, the driver that drove.
Yes. He's not a foreigner that drove.
Yes,
he's a Nigerian. And you claim to be a driver. He's not. They
claim he was speeding.
You understand? Driving school is not. It's not on TV that you tutor you how to drive. We only send it to primary school so that we say, oh, these people at maybe the adult age have become so difficult to manage. Let us start learning from school. That's why we take it down to primary school. Before you get your driver's license, you go to driving school. Okay. You know what it means. You know that on that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you're expected to go 100 kilometers per hour for a private car. For commercial, it is 90. Are there any
signs on the road?
Yes.
Signages to show
the signages is, like I said, we have a responsibility, which is to inform the necessary quarters.
When they break that law, how do you discover that?
We have what we call a radar gun.
What does the radar gun do?
Radar gun, the speed radar gun. When we stand at a strategic point. When we put it to your vehicle and you are going,
oncoming vehicle.
Yes, oncoming vehicle, it will show the number, it will show the color, and if you want to doubt it, we print it out for you. But definitely, Nigeria is more of a project.
So in other words, if you be able to see the car visually.
Yes, coming towards you. What you do, we have is maybe about 500 meters away. You stretch it at the direction you want it to come.
Yes, of the oncoming car.
Yes, the one that captures, you see the speed is going. And outside that, because we know Nigerian road network is 200,000 kilometers more. And there's no way I can tell you we deploy all this on all the roads. You understand? I won't deny that.
Why that is the essence. Why can't they have cameras?
They had road cameras in Abuja and all has been skipped. That's where we go. What is the morals of the citizen we are managing? They cut from the pole. We have manholes to cover potholes in Abuja. Overnight, they remove all.
Wow.
Because when we want to tackle a problem, let us be all encompassing.
Okay.
You know, because when we now say outside private, we say let's concentrate on the commercial first. That's why we introduce speed limit device.
Okay.
That when it is calibrated, you cannot go beyond a particular speed.
Okay, thank you so much. I wish we had longer time. Now, one last question, just 2 sentences or 1 sentence. What's your message for Nigeria? Anyway, we all pray that Nigeria gets better. We agree on that. Yes. So thank you so much, Peter Edgar. Thank you so much, Maymunah Kadiri. Thank you so much, Ogungbemide. Thank you so much for your perspectives this morning on this issue. Now, if 2026 is to stand for renewal, these lives must call for more than remembrance. Those lives that were lost and the lives that have been lost much before this, they should call for reform and safer roads. So the question beyond this moment to move into policy rooms, rapid response systems, newsrooms, and public consciousness, because the next victims may not be famous or trend, but their lives matter just as much. That's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here with me on Arise News. Goodbye and Happy New Year.